right, welcome back, and thank you for keeping it Citizen Television. Of course, this morning we are talking about the diplomatic question, looking at the cost, the waste, the in-betweens, and what needs to be done. And we are just putting on the weighing scale the foreign travels by President William Ruto and what the country has gained from, the trips he has made since he took office in 2022. I'm having this sit down this morning with Evans Ogada. Evans is a lawyer, Ahmed Hashi, diplomatic analyst, Professor Peter Kagwanja, CEO, Africa Policy Institute, and Dr. Ken Ombogi, Associate Dean at the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences at the University of Nairobi. He's also a governance expert. Thank you, gentlemen, for staying on. Of course, before we went for the break, we had just had, the president putting a case on why he traveled to Brussels. I want us to listen to, something else very quickly before now we engage on this conversation proper. This is the head of state saying he is not a tourist. The trips he makes are not for leisure. They are actually official duty. Let's hear what he had to say.
I was looking at one of the headlines in the newspapers, William Ruto is traveling again. I wish they knew the kind of schedule that I have. I wish they knew what I've come to do. I have not come here as a tourist. I have not come here to waste time. I have come here pointedly to make sure that we achieve certain things. Just for the record, I am the chief diplomat of our country. People want to know, what does Kenya stand for?
Wakili,
yes.
Chief diplomat, does he make a convincing case for you?
No, he does not. Because in terms of our foreign policy, I think, and I continue to maintain that we are shooting blanks. And
you remember he just said that there are things that can only be done at his level.
I disagree, because why do we have a whole ministry and several diplomats paid by the Republic of Kenya? This is an infrastructure that is at his disposal, and most of the things relating to diplomacy are usually done behind the scenes. I will expect him to give us tangibles in terms of this is what Kenya has achieved and this is what it has plowed back into the economy. This is how Kenyans are getting assisted. Because when you hear, and I watched one of his friends on TV, was it yesterday, quite arrogantly speaking at us Kenyans and basically insulting Kenya's intelligence, as if Kenyans cannot discern what's good for them and what is not. As Professor Mbogi correctly said, you don't need to tout or preen about the benefits Kenyans are getting. It will be felt. We don't need to be convinced otherwise. We will say that these are tangible benefits we are seeing. Look at what Mzee Kibaki did. His cooperation with the Chinese, for example. You saw how that transformed the infrastructure of this country. And that was very visible for everyone to see. So when the president tells us that, for example, he's gone to Brussels, and this is some of the intelligent questions people have to ask. He's going to Brussels to negotiate on some trade deals or something. And the last time that was done, remember our friends within the region, Museveni, Tanzania, were up in arms because some of these deals are intricately woven with what we have agreed to do in the region. So you cannot go there as William Ruto to negotiate on things that may have impact on our regional commitments in terms of the ESC. And that is the naivety that goes with his posturing. What benefits are we getting? Who is advising him? And bear in mind, look at our diplomatic infrastructure. We have sent so many new people who are essentially political, and some of them have no clue. They're not seasoned diplomats.
So ideally, in an ideal setup, who should advise him? Who should be involved in that foreign policy decision, and so that we understand whether he's veering off what should be done? Because it's not making sense.
He spoke of what Kenya stands for. He parades himself as the articulator of Kenya's foreign policy. We go by what you do, not what you say. What has he been doing? The evidence out there shows a president and a policy pivoting towards the West. Look at how we've been voting and doing things internationally. Increasingly transactional. Today we go this way, we go this way. It's all about transactions that are not making tangible, meaningful sense in Kenya. Look at considerable positions that should have been taken. The Palestinian question. What does Kenya say or not say internationally? Why is Kenya, for example, at the G7? Because South Africa was sacrificed. Yes. Why was South Africa sacrificed? Because South Africa dared to take some people to the ICJ. And so we are dancing on the blood of a fellow African country. What have we, for example, done or not said when it comes to Cuba? Cuba is now being strangulated. The people of Cuba cannot access water, cannot access basic amenities because the hegemon has decided that we are going to strangle them by their neck. What are we doing as Kenya?
Are you saying that we are dancing on very dangerous ground? In our diplomatic decisions?
Yeah? We are being emasculated in terms of the choices we can make internationally.
All right. I can see the body language in the room. And Kagonja, Prof, I want to hear your sentiments on what he said. And he actually alluded to something you mentioned earlier. I wanted to probe you on. You said something very, very powerful about us being too transactional and too PR-ish. Just give me some depth on what you meant by that, just so we can see whether we are headed in the right direction.
There is no doubt that we are at our lowest level in terms of our diplomacy.
Correct.
Notwithstanding the big PR business that we are doing.
And today, gentlemen, you're very pessimistic.
Let's clear that.
It's just the truth.
Two,
It's the truth.
The president is very condescending, almost arrogant, in regard to foreign policy. Listen to what he said in the clip you said here. Kenyans cannot understand. If we are entrusted in teaching the current and the future diplomats of this country, what don't we understand? Right? So that is the kind of thing. But the truth of the matter is that he has turned foreign policy business into a one-man affair.
Absolutely.
And diplomacy is a juggernaut. It's a machine that operates from the minister down. Is a machine that is supposed to be well-oiled. Look at who he has appointed, and that's what my brother here was alluding to. Who he has appointed as, representatives or people who are supposed to transact Kenya's foreign policy business. Some are, local councillors, others are MCAs, and so on. I mean,
is that why probably he has to do it himself?
I mean, because when you basically have people who have no clue what they are supposed to do, then you have to do everything.
Yes.
You can't become a jack of all trades, and even yourself, you are not a trained diplomat. Remember, the president is not a trained diplomat at all. Therefore, he needs to rely more on advisors. Let me finish and say this. When it comes to international transactions, his argument is really wanting. Because the truth, the situation we are dealing with here is that Africa is not on the table.
Absolutely.
Africa is on the menu. And when the G7 meets, they are meeting to see what they can do about Africa, how they can tighten the grip on us, how they are going to exploit us more, how they are going to turn us into the source of the minerals that they are going to use for their technologies. So we need a deeper debate than simply saying that we will change the West. It's naive for us as a country to imagine that you are going to Belgium, you're going to New York, you're going to Paris, and then you're going to change the Europeans. You can't. It has to be a collective Pan-African endeavor, finally.
So it can't be achieved in isolation?
No, in fact, even the assumption that we as Kenyans can change the West, well, you can never remove the spots from the leopard. It would always be a leopard. What you can do is to learn how to live with a leopard, because it will be like that. Therefore, what are the strategies that Africa is proposing to deal with us being on the menu? And how do we come to the table? That's the question South Africa has addressed at its own peril, because it is being punished. Other countries are being punished. Finally, let me say this. In Kenya's greatest problem now, in terms of foreign policy, it's our inability to turn when the time to turn comes.
Yes.
Let me give you an example. From the western side of views, not from the east, not from the global south, from the west itself, PricewaterhouseCoopers published a report a couple of years ago, and it was titled, it was about ranking countries in terms of how they are going to be by 2050, right? The current G7 as is constituted here now, only one country will be in the G7 by 2050. That's the United States. And even the United States will be number 3, not number 1, not number 2. So how can you be so, how can you kowtow to the West so boldly, like the world is moving to the West, not to the South? So look at, let me just, for the sake of the Kenyans' understanding, by 2050, number 1 country will be China with a $58.4 trillion economy. That will be the economy that time. Number 2 will be India with 44.1 trillion economy. Number 3 will be the United States with 34.1 trillion economy. Number 4 will be Indonesia. Number 5 will be Brazil. Number 6 will be Russia. Number 7 will be Mexico.
All right.
Number 8.
So when you look at the PwC projection?
Yes.
All right.
When you look at the countries now sitting on the table, that's a
they will not be there.
No, it is an irrelevant table.
I have ad nauseum spoken even with you at the failure of our foreign policy.
Yeah.
Well, I can clearly tell you that we do not have one.
We don't have a foreign policy?
We don't have a foreign policy. And if someone has it, please show it to me. Because, I think that's very important to tell the people of this country what's going on.
That's a very strong statement.
It's not.
And it's concerning because...
Actually, it's very mild. Yeah. It's actually very mild. I'm taking into consideration that we need to speak to the people in this country in a way that they can understand, and we can talk to them too. But we don't have a foreign policy, nor do we have an economic policy, nor do we have a social policy.
What do we have?
We have a president who agreed to bring a plane from the DRC to Laikipia that was carrying Ebola in its belly. Ma'am, if I have to show you the very height of neocolonialism today, it is that the president Trump who has slashed our healthcare, and our president who has sold our data to the United States medical system, then was told, go and pick up the Americans at the DRC and bring them to Laikipia. There was a court order from the Republic of Kenya, the High Court of this country. He ignored it. He called it national security. That's how COVID came here. Remember they said it was national security? I have never seen a definition of national security. It's always the go-to card of governments to bring out, say, this amorphous-looking concept called national security. So I think that it is important for us to tell the people of this country that the president doesn't have any ideas about domestic policy. He doesn't have any ideas about, and if he has, they have failed. And if he has any ideas about foreign policy, is to go and make speeches. Remember when Mr. Macron was here? The president is a very good politician at rhetoric. But 3 years into his administration, I can't point to one foreign, social, cultural, economic thing that is there. I'm just going to finish. Lastly, I think that it's not that the four of us are from different areas of this country, probably the most senior people in this country. And our criticisms of our country is not to make the president look bad, but to adhere to the constitutional system of government that we have the right to assembly, that we have the right to speech, that we have the right to stand up for this country when things have gone awry. And we're telling the president he's wrong because we're experts in our fields. The people who are sitting there and telling him are terrified of this man. because nobody can tell him anything. They are afraid that the minute you say, Mr. President, I think you're wrong, he loses his job. So the president is micromanaging everything. He knows what's going on in the Ministry of Youth and Sports. He knows what is happening in the Ministry of Culture, but he doesn't let his permanent secretaries and his ministers run this government. We have President Kibaki, who went and played golf. And this country was running like a machine. Him and the late Raila Odinga, both late Raila Kibaki, the country was going like a machine because there was a national consensus about moving forward.
Right.
There is no national consensus with the president of this country except looting this country.
Well said, Ahmed. Dr. Ombogi, let's be very authentic and honest. Isn't there any diplomatic trip that has been a win for Kenya?
No,
let's see the shaft from
Savin, and I said this earlier, there are a number of things as the president goes around bilaterally.
In those things, is there anything that, as an expert, you find a win for us as a country?
When he talks about the visibility of the country, soliciting funds for infrastructural development, issues of technology, you know, those are things that are close to the hearts of Kenyans. I come from academia, deal with young people who are yearning to advance themselves technologically. In that sense, the president is right. But what we are saying this morning, nobody is being overly pessimistic here. What we are simply saying, and this is historically true, that a nation must distinguish between diplomatic visibility and strategic effectiveness. That's simply the message that
we are not doing that.
The number of journeys matters less. The number of outcomes translated into jobs, infrastructure, technology transfer, and economic transformation, that's extremely useful. That is what we are saying. You know, the criticism that is facing the situation that the president is in is whether the financial cost of some of these trips, the delegations, the travel arrangements, is proportionate, you know, to the dire situation that we find locally here. The president is now in the G7, and we know very well, colleagues and Sabine, that when you are crossing the river, you don't shout insults at the crocodile. You know, there is really nothing much the president is going to say or do at the G7 that will change the way the G7 foreign policy towards Africa, towards Kenya. They already have a template. And I like what Prof said earlier. Prof Kawanja said many of the African countries actually in the foreign policy of a number of the countries of the global north, we are on the menu.
But
we are actually,
correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that is what he was trying to communicate yesterday. He is there and he's actually standing his ground and saying that Africa has been increasingly neglected, and you know, it's about time that we need to shift.
Is that a policy? Is that a policy?
Isn't that what you guys are saying?
That's not a policy.
If you diagnose that this is an elephant, and you want to bring it down, and you prescribe that use a toothpick to bring the elephant down,
it's nonsense.
It's nonsense.
Is it nonsense?
You know, in terms of rhetorical flourish, let's give it to the president. The sound bites are great. But look at what he is facing. I think he's approaching global affairs a tad naively.
Yes.
Because who are you dealing with? You are dealing with, let's go to the hegemon, the United States. What are the interests of the United States, for example, in terms of foreign policy? It's security, and in some instances, downright economic interest vested in a few corporations. Let's look at, for example, let's be a little bit minute here. Look at what they have been doing in terms of the Americas. The American foreign policy is not even articulated in a formal document, the Monroe Doctrine, where the United States wants to control what happens in that part of the world. That's why the Cubas of this world, the Venezuelans of this world, Salvador Allende in Chile. They have been trying to control things using an unarticulated policy position. We spoke of Kenya not having a foreign policy document. Yes, we have what we articulate as a foreign policy document, but it's a document that makes for laugh because it is very naive. It postures people who don't know what they are doing. We speak of economic diplomacy, digital diplomacy. Some of these things need not to be articulated. What we need, and DIRCO in South Africa, the Department for International Relations in South Africa, is adept in terms of their foreign policy because it is not articulated, but look at their practice. And you have to go back to what DIRCO is doing to 1993, South Africa, Nelson Mandela. Thereafter, Mbeki. And even the West, when they had the West of leadership, Zuma, and now Ramaphosa, they have kept the path in terms of their foreign policy, strategic neutrality, and they will transact from a neutral perspective. And that's why you see South Africa has been able to maintain its pride of respect in terms of how it deals with these faces in terms of diplomatic faces.
And just something to probe on that. Can we afford to really go the South Africa direction? A good example, let me just come down to our level here in Kenya. Look at, for instance, our health sector. How much we are funding it vis-a-vis what we are getting from the donors. If you go to other sectors, you can cite so many examples of where we are depending on the foreign support vis-a-vis what we are doing locally. So can we really afford to make a firm,
First and foremost, let me say what Ashi said.
Want it to be suicidal for...
Let me first of all say what Ashi said. And I liked that statement, that we don't have a foreign policy. And you might think that he's a cynic.
Wakili has said it's there, but it's laughable.
My brother is also saying. And I hope the government is listening. We are very patriotic. We have no problem. We have served this country with dedication, and we continue to serve it with dedication. What we are saying is that what we have now is not a foreign policy. It is the personal whims of the president. It's personal idiosyncrasy of the president. It's personal priorities of the president. Can we have a foreign policy that is liberated from the personal idiosyncrasies of the president? That's one point we're making. Second, that the president is allowing us as a country to be used instrumentally by major powers. You want to control South America, Latin America. Then you send us to Haiti, you give us a few money here, and we send our troops there. Who is gaining? It's not us.
Can we do without the money? I think that is what my question was.
I'm coming to that. Why should we be interested with money? I was in the meeting at Safari Park in 2004 when the World Bank, IMF, and others jetted in town. Kibaki had just come to power. And then a young girl, I think must have been an intern in some place, but elevated because they are serving in Africa. That's the kind of arrogance they have. Pointed a finger at the president like this. And when he was going, na huyo mtoto, na huyo mtoto. That's what Kibaki was saying.
He was upset.
And he was upset. And he said, never again. By 2005, 97% of our budget was financed by us. It was a government of Kenyans, by Kenyans, and for Kenyans. I don't believe in this nonsense about being aid and whatever.
It won't be suicidal.
Not even.
We actually can't stand.
Suicidal about us.
Actually,
So I think we're in agreement here in the panel today. I think that the most important thing is that we're not hacking any political agenda in this panel. What we're doing is giving an analysis of the fundamental political, economic, and diplomatic issues of the country. And we know for a fact that the president has concentrated power in his office. I mean, it's absolutely stunning. I mean, his advisors are from the stock market, Mr. Mohammed Hassan, Mr. Ndi, former now made chairman of the KKRA, former Barclays Bank. These are people who are in the monetary policy of the old type of economic system that believes in slashing and burning, that believes in the export model to serve the interests of the metropole. They do not believe in a vision of a consolidated East Africa where agriculture, service, and industrialization becomes a policy the way China did it. China, when it was doing the exporting, they did it in a few places on the coast. It never allowed them to come inside. And that investment and the ability of the Chinese state to control it is what made China today a $30 trillion economy. If these neoliberal conservative stockbrokers have an argument about telling us how any kind of stockbroking has brought economic development to any country, they should show me one. Every country that is happening, even in India, in Brazil, in Indonesia, all the cases today that we can look at is a country that the political class has decided that we want to create an economy for this country, we want to create jobs for this country, we want to be independent, not entirely independent, but independent of the type of problems that are facing lots of countries. And I think that Kenya is just a lackey. Right. Kenya has become a lackey. It just wants to attach itself to the elite class in Europe and in the United States. And I don't think they understand where international relations today is going. Look at what's happened to the Gulf. Look at what has happened to the Middle East. We just are sitting ducks because every time there's a problem, we don't have petrol.
Yes.
Why? We have a refinery. We can build a refinery. Nigerians have. We have oil in Turkana. I think that the priorities of our state elites should be bigger. Their ambitions should be bigger than living in Muthaiga. I mean, come on.
Dr. Mbongi.
Savin, I think let's keep it simple. The point that we are losing as a nation is the G7 have a clear utilitarian approach on the way they are dealing with us. And we don't seem to realize this, and this is what Prof was calling instrumentalizing diplomacy. Look at the other observer nations that were invited to the G7, India, and then Ukraine. You look at them, they have specific issues they are dealing with. They are not overly overburdened by that like we are. I've seen a photo of the president, the only African standing. You know, when you are black among the rest, you stand out. But then, what does that do to us within the African continent?
Yeah, good question.
We are clearly a sellout nation. And this resonates with, which we will live with through history. We will not change that. During apartheid in South Africa,
we sold out.
We sold out.
Yep.
And we are selling South Africa again. The second time.
The second time, yeah.
No, it can't work. The point we are saying, diplomacy, in a way, and historically this is true, that diplomacy thrives on a balance. If a country appears, excessively eager to quote external partners, very eager, without, knowing clearly what we are looking for, then we end up weakening ourselves. In the face of the African continent right now, we have actually, in a sense, undermined Pan-Africanism.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is very, very clear, especially at this time when the G7 were clearly against South Africa, a country that is very important in the BRICS. So they invite India, they invite Brazil, and instead of inviting South Africa, they kick them out and bring out Kenya.
And Kenya go.
Yeah. I just want to hear your thoughts, Dr. on what Hashi, and even I think Wakili alluded to, that we seem to not be, we are not reading the room, we are not. He actually said that we are not understanding where international diplomacy is going. Do you think that's the case?
That is what I'm saying.
So that's what we're saying now.
That's exactly what I'm saying, that we may have nice documents that talk about economic diplomacy, diplomacy relating to technology transfer and all that. That is important.
All right.
But at the moment, and I talked about the timing earlier, we seem to be losing some kind of bearing. That even when you asked earlier whether we cannot do without the money that we got to take our soldiers, our police officers to Haiti.
And in other things that transactions we've gotten into.
We do not need that. If we are going to Haiti with a mission to help, not to do or play the bidding of the powers that were particularly United States.
All right. I want us to listen to. Yeah.
It is important to realize that there are times when we need to take a bold step. I like what Secretary of Guinea.
All right. I'll come back to you, Dr. We want to fix something with you.
Yes. Let me finish this.
But you want to fix your microphone. So as we do that, let's listen. Let's listen to the President William Ruto putting a case to what he expects from the G7. He's actually very optimistic that the G7 summit will bear very good outcomes for Africa. Let's listen into what he said.
This is a most consequential and significant meeting, especially happening against the background of what is happening globally. And for us in the African continent, it is a build-up from where we were in 2023. First, we convened the Africa Climate Summit in Nairobi that brought together African heads of state and stakeholders to discuss and consolidate our position, ideas, and suggestions on how climate change and the effects of it were affecting not just us, and Africa did not need to continue just being a victim, but a significant contributor to how a solution could be found. It is also against the background of Africa Forward Summit that we held last month, where 33 heads of state were in attendance with our friends from France. And again, we built consensus on where is Africa going, how is it going to play in the global scheme of things.
All right. Okay. We are going to give everybody a chance to speak on that. But
I just want to respond to that. I think that it is this is characteristic of the president's unilateralism. I don't know who's there talking to him about foreign affairs, because our Minister of Foreign Affairs simply goes to other countries to just set the stage for him. And the intellectual elite, if I can call them, of the foreign economic and social policy are not in this government. President Ruto does not work with people that who can stand up to him. He will not work with you. He will only work with the people that he produced, who can follow his line. And the problem with this country today is leadership. The leadership has collapsed, because if you look at the economy has shrunk by 1/3. And that is the government statistics, it's not mine. The signature of our foreign affairs was to kidnap Kizza Besigye here in town. You remember you interviewed me about that. We kidnapped him and sent him to a military barracks, and then we did not offer an apology. Today in the front page of the Standard, right? This is an apology, right? An apology to what? This is the National Assembly, the people's home, the most important institution in the country. What's happening? There are men with AK-47s shooting children. Does this country need an apology or retribution? No. What we need is a national conversation about where our country is going, because I think we're at the precipice of a very dark corner. And unless the people of this country stand up and say, our country cannot continue going in this way, then we're going to be like Somalia, then we're going to be like South Sudan, ignite ethnic tensions in this country. You can already see the kind of institutions you just read in the news, that people are calling for peace and saying that people are worried about the coming elections. I think that we have to take the bull, not even the horn. There's a saying that says you take the horn by the bull. We have to take the bull and put it up and say, does this constitutional governmental system that we have allow for us to even change this president, even before an election? There was a member of parliament who went there to the National Assembly to put an impeachment for the president.
I don't know how far
all the other parliamentarians were scared, because they're all bought off. I think we are in the wrong direction, and we should not be afraid to speak up for this country.
Well said, Ahmed. Wakili, you heard the president. It can't all be sound bites.
We have about 5 planks that should inform any reasonable African state's foreign policy and interactions on the international plane. Number 1, we have infrastructure financing, foreign direct investment, technology transfer, energy cooperation, and export markets. I would want to ask the president, my president, William Ruto, from all these many trips he's doing, what, for example, has he obtained for Kenya in terms of technology transfer?
Nothing.
The other day, the Canton Fair in China, we had manufacturers over there using AI, displaying to us the ability of robotics helping paraplegic people move around. I'm very sure China will be able to share that with their friends in the region to help the less advantaged of our citizens. Will any American company share that with you in Kenya to help your people? It will come at a cost, at a very steep cost. I'm very sure if we are dealing with the Chinese, we will be able to negotiate with them to afford that for our people.
Are we currently not friends with China?
That is where I was going.
We don't know.
That is where we are going. In terms of the region.
There are so many contracts we see left, right, and center that the Chinese are in charge of.
In terms of the region, who has China placed at the top of the seat?
Yeah.
Ethiopia.
Yeah.
It's the fair weather friend. So if you want to negotiate anything within the region, you have to go to Addis and talk to Abiy. Kenya has pivoted itself to the extreme and sitting with the West. And again, the question is, what are you going to get from those countries, for example, simply on technology transfer, in terms of the export market? And it says a lot when Donald Joseph Trump should praise you and think of you as somebody worthy of praise.
He should.
It says a lot.
Professor,
yes.
Yeah, very quickly, and then we
Now, I don't want us to lose this argument that has been made.
I'm still held that Donald Trump shouldn't praise her. That's
we shouldn't lose this point. That let us beware that we should not be seen by fellow Africans and those of our partners in the global South as a sellout nation.
Yep.
We have a business to protect our brand as a Kenyan, brand, where we are serving the interests of our citizens, our regions, and fellow global Southeast. So, meaning that when we are doing this, I'm not saying G7 is not important. It's a player in the world today. I'm not saying that Donald Trump doesn't matter. He's the president of the United States. But we are Kenya, and we have our national interests. What are those? For example, when you listen to what is being said in G7, you would think that Kenya is placed in such an important place in the G7. I was looking at the table, the round table, where these 8 people are sitting, including the secretary.
Where are we placed?
No, we are not there. Yeah. We are on the sidelines. You can see where the president is giving speech in the park.
Dr. Mbogi had a very interesting description of the location where
the bush. So let me conclude by simply saying that at this material time, G7 matters, BRICS matters, others matter. We should maintain our balance as a country. When the president traveled to China in May 2025 and had a meeting with President Xi and the team in China, it resonated well. But it did not resonate well with the United States because the speech was extremist. You put in your speech rhetoric that doesn't make the US Congress happy. At the same time, when you swing now to the United States, 2 things you do. You are a NATO ally. We are not a military state. We are a soft power nation. 2, you come home, you are getting Ebola into our country. Yeah. You can now not travel to Israel. You cannot travel to a number of countries. that are sensitive about tempora.
That ban was lifted.
No, it is okay, but we are saying...
They put it there and then
an afterthought.
They called them and said, please, you're making us look bad.
Yeah, but how do you make a nation, an Ebola nation, when we have no Ebola, by virtue of choices you make?
All right.
So the point we are making is that we need to strike a neat balance between the various forces internationally based on what we want as Kenyans.
All right, Dr. Mbogi, and as you make your argument, in the basket of wins, the president mentioned Africa Climate Summit, the Africa Forward Summit,
yes,
as part of what makes for his basket of wins. I mean, this must have sent a very strong
Savin, it would be true if you look at it at a very superficial level.
All right.
You know, in diplomacy, and this is historically true, and I've been reading history for a while now for a living. If you don't know who is being used in a diplomatic relationship, then you are the one. If you look through history, we have made certain strategic mistakes that our children and their children will be punished for, diplomatically speaking, in coming years. Earlier on, before my microphone started to misbehave, said that we were sellouts during the time of apartheid. Because we aligned ourselves to the West, and we were very close to London and Washington at the time, and we betrayed our brothers and sisters in South Africa. The world has not forgotten. Africans have not forgotten. Very recently, we played a role that we shouldn't have played by going to Haiti on the behest of others. We are being used. You earlier talked about getting the money. I like what Secretary of Guinea said when the French gave them an option of either having links with them and remain rich or cutting them and remaining poor. Secretary was very clear. We better be poor in freedom than being rich in bondage. Took a decision. Now, look at the African Forward Summit that you are talking about. We were here in this forum saying that when you look at the balance sheet of all that, what France wants to achieve is to actually make in Anglophone Africa what it has lost in Francophone Africa. One more time, Kenya was being used to divide the continent.
Correct.
Very clearly. That the Saharian countries, you know, from Chad, Guinea, and Niger, and Côte d'Ivoire, they are moving away from France. So France is looking for a way to get a stronghold in Africa. And Kenya, we open our doors, including windows and everything, to be used. The benefits, yes, they are there. But you are given cake on this side, but your soul is taken on the other side. Look at now that because of that, we seem to be engaged in destructive positive engagement. You know what you call in diplomacy. That is a euphemism for eating from both sides of the mouth. We are going east and going west at the same time. And we will pay the price for that ultimately.
You know, the great Oscar Wilde, my favorite author, once said that true friends stab you at the front. You know about this quip about being stabbed at the back. But, you know, he's such an amazing writer. He said that true friends, people who are your friends, they stab you while you're looking. You know, you're going to die.
They stab you in the
so you know that this was your enemy and you thought it was your friend. So I think that the quintessential question that we have here, if we can encapsulate it for the people of our republic here, is that we need to change. We need to transform. We need to stop doing the things that we're doing. There's a famous quip about, you know, madness is about doing things the same way over and over again. And it's wrong for us 60 years after independence to have a group of girls burnt in a secondary school because the standards of the buildings was bad, because the leadership at the school was bad. It says something about our nation. It says that we don't care and that we will move on, something will happen, we continue moving on. And if we continue moving on, then the country will burn at the end. So the important thing is for us to start thinking that on that day, why wasn't the architecture of that school where those children died brought to the book? Why wasn't the headmaster and the staff, the teachers there, brought to the book? Why was it there was no inquiry and investigation into standards of girls' secondary schools? And essentially to ask the questions, why do we need boarding schools? Why do we need boarding schools? I think that this throwaway ideas of taking our children and throwing them into a boarding school, throwing them into a nursery because we have to all run to the economy, which is not really an economy, to find some kind of sustenance, questions the very idea of our republic as a nation state.
All right.
And so what I'm saying at the end of the day is that we're not cynics. We're not simply criticizing the president for the sake of it. With tangible political economy questions that are putting on the table day on day in the events of our republic that shows that we're in the wrong path. And my dear sister, if at the end of the day we do not speak up now, if we don't speak up, there will be no one to speak up later and the country will be in trouble, and this is the only home we have. So we ought to stand up for this country, as I've always said.
All right. I hear what you're saying, and I want us to utilize a few remaining minutes on just becoming
Last
a bit
comments,
solution-oriented on what should be done, because you've painted a picture that seems, actually it is directed to the point that we really have. We are not in a very good place when it comes to our diplomatic engagements. The control of budgets actually, mentioned something about how much we are spending. The other day it was out. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, 1.3 billion is spent on foreign travel, 69 million on local travel during the period that is July 2025 to March 2026. And it's not the first time that she has spoken to this matter. Prof. Kagwanja, are we that vulnerable, and what do we need to do? Because I don't want us to end this conversation at a point of helplessness.
No.
We are doing it.
Imagine me walking to State House this morning to advise the president, and what I would tell him. As a Christian, I would remind him of why we hate Satan. We hate Satan because he steals our souls. And we are having a foreign policy, Mr. President, which has no soul. That's why we are now beginning to emerge as a mercenary nation.
Correct.
Particularly for the West. We begin, in the eyes of fellow Africans, and I have just come from Addis Ababa with my friend, my brother. We spent the whole week in Addis Ababa. Then the sense we get is that we are a sell-out nation. That's what the rest of Africans think about us. And it's not good, because our strength, when we are desperate and need help, we run to the Africans. We run to the continent. Then we cannot be afforded to be seen by fellow Africans as a sellout nation, because we seem to be making some economic
So how do we shift?
The shift is,
how do we remove that tag?
Let's return to our Pan-African foundation. Let's return to our regional foundation. Let us seek consensus with fellow Africans, not seek consensus with Europeans and others.
Correct.
Let's engage our brothers in Europe, our brothers in America and elsewhere from an African standpoint.
Correct.
Not that we want to be isolationist.
No.
Two, let's have a Kenyan foreign policy, not a Ruto foreign policy. We must separate the two, because there will be Kenya after Ruto. But that Kenya needs to be predictable to the coming generations. Currently, we just have Ruto's whims, idiosyncrasies, and personal priorities. We need a foreign policy.
Okay.
Kenya, in terms of foreign policy, should be able to preserve certain abilities. And these abilities, for me, is number one, Kenya should be able to vote independently in terms of international organizations. Look at what we've been doing at the UN. When it comes to hard questions like Palestine and Cuba, we will vote the way capitalist America wants us to vote. That's not independence. That's neocolonialism. Number two, we should be able to mediate impartially in international disputes. Currently, we are not trusted. Professor Kagwenja has said that the perception from Africa is that we are sellouts. That's something we need to work on. Number two, we need to forge coalitions based on issues. Currently, it appears to be a one-man show. We are shooting in the dark. We are running around like headless chicken. DIRCO South Africa provides an example for us. You can stand on principle, you can stand on issues, you will be respected as a player on the international plane. Finally, advance national interests without the perception being viewed as another power's agenda. You will be respected on the table when you are viewed as a neutral player. And that will happen when Kenya gets rid of the following two. Number one, Hashi spoke of the stock market players. In other terms, they are called the Chicago School players. You have a number of technocrats who are mandated on you as a country to run your affairs.
Yep.
These are people who are usually strategically put in certain offices to play the neoliberal agenda.
Yep.
And those are the people, if you look at history, look at Chile. After America had organized for the overthrow of Salvador Allende, and look at all countries in Africa, Mobutu, Ouattara in Ivory Coast, they will always want to place their neoliberal boys to control the agenda, and including foreign policy. Kenya must retrace what Professor Kaganja said, our Pan-Africanist roots. We need to look at what resonates with
us.
Our local ones.
Well said.
Finally, the Africa Forward Summit. Kenya thinks that by being invited to co-host a meeting here with France, we are so important. Let's look at that Chinese proverb again.
But why Kenya? It could have been any other country.
That is the question.
Yeah.
And the response is this.
Region.
A pig should fear fattening because it's usually a prelude to slaughter.
I didn't see you go that direction, but it's okay.
I think I'll give you a simple example. The governor of Wajer.
You guys want us to walk on glass.
Let me give you a simple example. The governor of Wajer brought people together in a stadium here in Wajer.
Yeah.
And for the first time, the people of northern Kenya felt this, it's called, I think the proper comprehensive English word is euphoria. Why? There was a feeling of togetherness. There was a sense that the country had come of age about northern Kenya and that there were citizens of this country. And I think that is a very admirable thing that the governor of Wajer did. And I think that if we do that in this country, bring people together, right? And Kenyans hear Oromo songs in Wajir. They hear Somali songs in Wajir. It tells us something about bringing the country together and finding a leadership that can bring us together in East Africa, that can bring industrialization and finish our material products, oil, whatever we have, with intelligence and get a leadership that wants to help this country. Not a leadership that has come from the cracks of division, from the cracks of civil war, from the cracks of tribalism. I think there's a new consciousness that we want to build in this country. And once we build that consciousness of us coming together, then the ability of all of us to look at the problem and solve it will be enhanced by 100%. I put it to you that that is the fundamental thing that we need to do in this country, bring people together, move forward.
All right. Actually, in the interest of fairness, it's not just the governor, even the president himself was in Wajir.
The president, he is the president of the country, he had to come there.
Not only he had to come.
But it's the people there who did the job.
Two things, Savin, here. One is, let's appreciate it. Our president is young. Energetic, is probably the youngest president we have had as a country.
He's a few years older than us.
You know, we understand that he's in a energetically, doing his international engagements. And probably that is what is expected of any chief diplomat that the president is, and he says he is. It seems he understands that. But what we are saying this morning is that in much more recent years, we have tended towards transactional diplomacy that is not helping Kenya's position, whether internationally or in the region. We were known historically in this region to be the peace brokers. Now very few countries in the Horn or even in the Eastern Africa region trust us. The debacle that involved Khartoum, you remember very recently, when Sudan was very clear that they don't need Kenya as a mediator. That is what we want to move away from and restore our position as a regional power when it comes to brokering peace and issues of stability. That's number one. Number two, nobody should put, a bottleneck or something to cut the presidential travel. A president must be able to be a global ambassador, but also he needs to appreciate that we need him as a local custodian. Too little travel may isolate the nation from, the rest from opportunity. But too much travel will isolate the leader, from the public mood locally.
That's a good one.
What we need is the art of, balancing. Yeah. Statecraft requires that, choosing between domestic and international engagements balance. We need to be able to persuade Kenyan citizens that every journey abroad ultimately serve the nation at home.
Thank you for saying that. Gentlemen, allow me to end it there. I'll be pained if I overrun and eat my own time. Health and lifestyle is coming up, and I'll be moderating that as well.
You did wonderful.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Great.
Dr. Ken Ombogi, Associate Dean, Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences at the University of Nairobi. I've also been engaging Ahmed Hashi, Diplomatic Analyst, Professor Peter Kagwanja, CEO, Africa Policy Institute, Asante, and Wakili Evans Ogada. Kamana. Asante sana. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for creating time. We end it there, but I'm coming back shortly with health and lifestyle. We are focusing on Ebola this particular morning. We are looking at the numbers in the DRC and also looking at what is happening in neighboring country Uganda and what that means to us as Kenya, and also looking at the economics of dealing with an outbreak. That coming up shortly after the break.